What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And today, the New York Giants took the practice field. This was an open practice, their first one since training camp closed to the public last week. This was an open practice, Giants versus New York Jets. The Giants and the Jets play a preseason game this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Make sure to tune into the channel because I will be doing the live play-by-play as I did last week, but this time reacted to Giants versus Jets with a special guest, so stay tuned for that. But in preparation for that preseason game, a couple of joint practices between the Giants and the Jets, one today, one tomorrow, but today's practice, well, we're going to recap it for you. We're going to give you the takeaways and let you know that the offense had its fair share of struggles without Malik Nabers on the field. Yeah, that's right. Malik Nabers versus Sauce Gardner did not happen today. Nabers sat out of practice. Brian Daboll said that he is still rehabbing his toe injury. So, no Nabers. I'm not overly concerned yet. Think they're just being cautious with him, but I know Alex and I have differing thoughts on how cautious the Giants should be with Malik Nabers' injury. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But on top of that, before I hand it off to you, Alex, for your takeaways, Cam Scatterboot also did not practice. Neither did Jalen Hyatt or Evan Neal. I know those are guys that everybody's really eager to see on the practice field and eager to see on the preseason field. Well, I can tell you, those guys will not play in the preseason game unless they're able to get in a full practice between now and the time Saturday rolls around. So, not super optimistic that we're going to see those guys play against the Jets in the preseason game on Saturday, but there is still another practice or two before that game, so we will see. But there's definitely reasons for concern for guys like Neal and Hyatt who are fighting for spots on this lineup and honestly on this roster, even with Jalen Hyatt, because he hasn't practiced in like 2 weeks now. I don't know what's going on with him, but I'll digress off that as we dive into these takeaways. I'm sure it will come up. Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? What did you take away from today's joint practice between the Giants and the Jets?
Doing pretty good, man. Yeah, really good opportunity for the Giants and Jets to get after it. Obviously, there was no tackling today. It's more of like a, non-contact type of practice, but they're saving that for week 2 of the preseason, obviously, and trying to make sure everyone escapes these days, obviously, healthy. And I think there were some guys that came off the field, returned a little bit later. It was really hot this morning. So, if you've been outside New Jersey, New York, whatever, it's humid. It's really hot. I'm sure that some guys are cramping and needed some extra liquids. So I definitely think that played a part. And, you probably heard some of those players like James Hudson left and then came back a couple minutes later. So, there's definitely players that were going to need a little bit of extra work. But, with that being said, the Giants struggled offensively. That, you mentioned that before. They finished strong, though. Sometimes not how you start. It's how you finish. And, when it comes to the Giants, you look at Russell Wilson, what he did in the red zone there. I'm just going to speak through my smiling. Russell Wilson finished strong, had a really solid touchdown to Theo Johnson, I believe, who, seemingly becoming a pretty important target for him on the offensive side when Malik Nabers not playing. And, we'll get after that in a second. But Theo Johnson can be a pretty big component of this offensive side. Not much from other guys like Wandale and Slayton and stuff like that. But, Johnson definitely stood out. I know Jackson Dart had a nice touchdown pass to Zach Pascal. The offensive line, obviously up and down. Marcus Bowe also, I heard, had a pretty solid day, so that's really encouraging. But from an offensive perspective, without Nabers, when any team loses their best offensive weapon, it's going to hurt significantly. So the Giants losing Nabers for today's practice, yeah, obviously it hurt them, but you want to see Russ be able to target other guys, other players get involved, other players step up. That's really what we're focusing on. I really haven't heard much of Slayton this whole camp. Like, his name hasn't really been.
Slayton scored a touchdown during red zone periods today.
Amazing
practice.
So that's great because I haven't really heard his name at all this summer for the most part. So good to hear that he got involved today. Jalen Hyatt's a whole nother situation that's really concerning to me. I don't care what he tweets. I don't care what videos I see. I have not seen this guy do anything this summer that has actually been consistently inspiring and optimistic. It's just he misses this day or he doesn't play that day or, he has an injury this day. He has a hamstring pull that day. He needs to get on the goddamn field and play. He needs to get on the goddamn field and produce, contribute, show he can be an actual factor in this offense before I sit here and act like he can be anything more than just a bench warmer, right? He has so much to prove. There is no excuse for being absent all the time. It really pisses me off because I think he has a lot of talent, could be a good piece in this offense, but he doesn't freaking play. He never freaking shows up when you need him. And that is the epitome of being a professional athlete. The best ability is availability sometimes. This guy's never freaking available.
Yeah, I can tell you're pissed off. I like that you had to clarify. We could hear it, buddy. We know. But I feel your frustrations. Jalen Hyatt's a guy that we all want to see get his chance to be something. Get a chance in this offense with a quarterback who knows how to throw the ball downfield. Can't get that chance if you can't get yourself on the football field. For me, though, honestly, Alex, the reason I'm not angry and frustrated is because I think it's just the next man up. I don't think Jalen Hyatt, without him on the field, that we're really losing something. Jackson Dart played some good football with the second team on Saturday afternoon, and Jalen Hyatt wasn't out there. Instead, he hit that deep shot to Lil Jordan Humphrey. Lil Jordan Humphrey being the vertical threat down the sideline that Jalen Hyatt has failed to be since he's gotten here. So I'm not overly concerned about it. Yes, I know Jalen Hyatt has elite speed, or at least he did coming out of college. Sure, he's a former Fred Biletnikoff Award winner. He was a tremendous talent at Tennessee, but we haven't seen much of that at all show up on the football field. And now that he's not on the football field, I don't really miss him, Alex. So I get your frustrations. I get why you're upset about it. But me, I'm a little bit like, whatever. Next man up. Wide receivers in this NFL, the studs are the studs. Outside of that, truly, they can be a dime a dozen. A guy of Jalen Hyatt's caliber and inconsistency, I think we can find a guy who's a little bit more of a consistent performer that can still stretch the field vertically. Right now, that's seemingly becoming Lil Jordan Humphrey catching that touchdown pass from Jackson Dart, but also Montrell Washington. Yes, he had a drop on Saturday's game, but he also almost took a quick pass up the sideline into the house, just stumbled while running near the sideline. There are some nice receivers on this team is essentially my point. Some of them have that speed. Some of them have different playmaking styles. Jalen Hyatt, if he's not able to get on the practice field and not able to make some plays, I don't think that he's the most significant loss. But I am rooting for him. I do hope that we get to see him out there soon enough. I do like the speed that he possesses. Maybe we will be able to get some Jalen Hyatt preseason touchdowns. Still doesn't have one in the regular season, 2 seasons down in his career. But of course, we will see if he's able to turn things around. Let's talk about some of the other receivers, though. As I mentioned, Darius Slayton did score a touchdown at the end of practice. What I understand from this practice is the Giants kind of crushed it in red zone drills. When they got into the red zone, it was Russell Wilson to Theo Johnson, touchdown. Devin Singletary up the middle, touchdown. Darius Slayton in the back of the end zone, touchdown. It was touchdown after touchdown, but getting to the red zone was a real struggle for the Giants offense today. And so when they just place them in the red zone, you could score some points. That's fine. But on Sundays, you got to make your way into the red zone. You got to earn the right to be in the red zone. And the Giants didn't exactly earn that right. They were more given the opportunity during today's practice. So that's something that I think we need to see some improvement on. But I will say, Giants' red zone offense was abysmal last year. The fact that Russell Wilson is throwing some touchdowns, getting the ball in the end zone when they're in the red zone is definitely a positive takeaway, especially since the Jets have a pretty strong defense and a great defensive mind in Aaron Glenn as their head coach. But Alex, I kind of teased at the beginning of the show. Let's talk about Malik Nabers. You have an opinion on Malik Nabers and how much he should or shouldn't practice during the next couple of weeks as we lead into the regular season. And I have the opposite opinion. So I'll let you go ahead first, give your take on it. And then I think I'm going to punch you in the face and fight back at you.
All right, sounds good. I mean, I think Malik Nabers with this toe injury, they clearly have a rehab plan. I don't care that he's not practicing. I don't think he needs to practice right now. Of course, yeah, like if he's fully healthy, have him play. But if this toe injury is serious and it seems that they are being very, very cautious, I don't care that he didn't practice today. I don't care that he doesn't practice tomorrow. I don't even care if he doesn't play in preseason this week, because this dude went out there with Drew Lock and dominated, right? Had just catches everything his way. This training camp this summer so far, every single throw that goes his way from Russell Wilson is a freaking catch or a huge play downfield. He does not need astronomical amount of reps. Like the extra 20 to 30 reps of Russell Wilson right now is not going to just define the Giants season. But if he gets hurt in training camp, it absolutely will define the Giants season. So my opinion, bubble wrap this guy. If he doesn't need to be out there, don't put him out there, because the truth is that he is good enough that he's borderline quarterback proof. Russell Wilson is going to have good relationship with him, going to have good chemistry with him. We've already seen it. I don't even want to risk the idea of losing him, because if he goes down, the entire offense is gone with him.
I absolutely hate the idea of bubble wrapping NFL players. You are a football player. You get on the field and you play some goddamn football. I understand that he's injured. This is not a significant injury that they expect to keep him out long term. He's been playing with this injury for 3 years. He's fine. I don't understand why everybody's acting like it's the end of the world that Malik Nabers missed a practice with a toe injury. Bubble wrap him. He can't play. No more practice snaps, no more preseason snaps. Okay, well then in week 1, when a ball sails over his head because the timing was off between him and Russell Wilson on a 3rd down, and then we have to punt and we end up losing that game, I don't want to hear anybody complain. I want everybody to be okay with the loss because you didn't want to prepare during the preseason for the regular season. That's where those little minor moments where a ball is just more on time in the regular season than it would have been, that's where it comes into play, is in the preseason. Him and Russ need to get some reps together. I get it. They've practiced well. He's a beast. He's Malik Nabers. He's a top 5 receiver in the NFL. Jamar Chase is top 1, and he practiced with Joe Burrow in the preseason because they want to get the timing and chemistry down and get those reps in so they can have a hot start to the regular season. What happened to the Bengals last year? A lot of those guys did not play in the preseason. They went 0-4 to start the year. They had to climb their way back into the playoff race at the end of the season and still missed out despite historically good numbers from Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. They had a slow start to the season, and it sunk their ship. The Giants have had the slowest of starts to their last 2 seasons. They have been outscored 68-6 in their last 2 regular season openers. Slow starts, snoozing at the wheel from the quarterbacks, the receivers, everybody. Hot start week 1. You get that by getting your reps in during the preseason and hitting the ground running. Practice reps are not the same as preseason game-setting reps. It's a completely different thing in terms of the timing, and the Giants need to make sure that all of their receivers and quarterbacks are on the same page in terms of their timing. So unless there's a potential surgery out there looming for this toe injury, which there isn't, they have said that they know they can manage it and he can play the entire regular season with it as he did last year and the season prior at LSU. Unless there is something significant to this, he should be playing in the preseason. No bubble wrapping. NFL players, that's their job. Get ready for the regular season, go out in the preseason and do it.
Listen, 99.9% of players, I absolutely agree. But when it comes to players who define your season, you, in my opinion, have to protect those guys. You know what I mean? Especially if they're dealing with nagging issues. Look, I agree with you. Last year, Bengals absolutely came out slow and they had to catch up and they failed to catch up. But the Giants weren't bad because of lack of preseason reps. They were bad because their quarterback was horrible. And they were bad because their offensive line was horrible. But the preseason reps was never going to define Daniel Jones's career.
Daniel Jones didn't play in the preseason. He could have played at least a little bit better in week 1 if he got some reps. You agreed with me on this last year. Why are you changing your mind now? What is this? You agreed with me when I made this point.
What I'm
These
saying
guys
is,
needed more reps in the preseason.
No, they did. They did. But preseason wasn't going to be the deciding factor between the Giants being good and bad. I agree they needed it because at this point, it's like, this guy is so bad, it doesn't matter. Malik Nabers could play with a freaking ragdoll at quarterback and still put up 1,000 yards. That's how freaking good he is. You cannot risk losing. If they don't have him for week 1 against the Commanders, they don't have him for week 2, week 3, the Giants are going to be 0-3. You know what I mean? They need him healthy. They need him ready to go.
They can bubble wrap him for all the preseason, and he can tear his knee to shreds in week 1 anyway. You can't play scared.
Absolutely.
You can't bubble wrap.
You can't play scared.
Regular
season is totally, like, if it happens regular season, that's fine. But you get to control what happens in the offseason and the preseason. You get to control if the guy plays, doesn't play. They get to say we can keep Malik Nabers out of this practice, out of this game, and it doesn't matter because it doesn't count against our record at all. But if week 1 comes around, he has to play. My personal opinion, when it comes to guys that will tank your season if they go down before, they will tank your season if you lose Nabers for even a couple of weeks, you can't risk that re-aggravation, especially if it's nagging him. And then, his contributions are limited because of it. If he's fully healthy, that's a different story. But clearly he's not fully healthy. Otherwise he'd be practicing, no?
He is as fully healthy as he's going to be. They have been managing this injury the same way that they were last year. This is the healthiest he's going to get. He's not going to be 100% healthy this season. The toe injury has been lingering for 2 years. He will never be 100% this season. As healthy as he is good enough to play in the preseason. He's a competitor too. I'm sure he wants to. It's Malik Nabers, for God's sakes. Get him on the field if he wants to be there. The bubble wrapping. You can get hurt at any time. We just saw Rashawn Slater. Should Rashawn Slater have been bubble wrapped all training camp for the Los Angeles Chargers? No, you couldn't predict that he was randomly going to tear his patellar tendon.
Of course not, but he wasn't injured before that. But I'm talking about
he's always injured.
Okay, but I'm talking about specifically guys that are currently rehabbing things that do not need to be out there. One drive, 2 drives with Russell Wilson at quarterback, Malik Nabers on the field is not going to decide week 1. It's not going to decide week 2 or week 3. Russell Wilson being out there with the offense. I think it's actually more important that Russell Wilson knows his offensive line comparably to a guy at Malik Nabers that is going to dominate no matter what. You could throw him the ball in the vicinity and he will come up with it.
Okay, but Malik Nabers going for 1,200 yards with all these shitty quarterbacks last year. Yes, he can go for 1,200 yards with anybody throwing him the ball. A lot of those yardage come in lost games. Garbage reps, basically. You know why that is? Because the Giants lost all those games at the beginning of the season. It is more important to have him fully ready to go in week 1. All those practice reps, as many as he can get, the chemistry, the timing, because you're saying it's not going to define week 1. Well, let's imagine it's a 3rd and 7 with a minute left in the game, or let's call it a 4th and 5 with a minute left in the game, and the timing is off on a pass between Russ and Malik Nabers. Had they gotten a couple more reps in there, you can't say that wouldn't have made a difference, because it probably would have.
But you could also, but on the flip side of that, Nabers is playing while still dealing with this aggravating injury, and he gets hurt because of it.
He's doing that anyway.
I know, but I'd rather him test that probability when it actually matters in the regular season than doing it in the off-season training camps, spring preseason, when these things don't matter and don't count. You know what I mean? Like that's just my personal opinion.
They do matter. They do count.
I think it matters for the broad team, 99% of players, absolutely. But guys like this that will win no matter what, will dominate no matter what, I don't think it's as necessary. But for a guy like Daquan Felton, or how about this? Better example, Jalen Hyatt, get your goddamn ass on the football field because you have everything to prove. Malik Nabers has nothing to prove.
That matters even less to me. It's not about proving something. Jalen Hyatt's not deciding our season anyway. The chemistry between him and Russell Wilson is not as important. His preparation on Sunday isn't as important as Malik Nabers' preparation on Sunday.
A couple of extra reps between Russ and Nabers is not going to be the difference between winning and losing football games, in my opinion.
It could be. It's the 1 to 2 plays in a game that the chemistry and the timing makes all the difference, and that will decide a game. That's my take on it. There's bubble wrapping just doesn't make sense to me. I don't agree with bubble wrapping. I think everybody, if you're healthy enough to play, and Nabers is as healthy as he's going to get, everybody who's healthy should get on the football field.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're 100% healthy, absolutely, but I think that the fact they have a plan for him suggests that this is a legitimate concern. Right, like it's a real concern, and I don't want to have him aggravate this before ever playing a meaningful snap this season. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Is like, for a regular ass player that's like fully healthy, like yes, absolutely be out there. It's football, things can happen. But when it comes to guys that are dealing with like injuries that are aggravating and they're consistent and they're not going away, I don't want to risk like him overcompensating and getting hurt doing something else because that toe injury is hurting him, or maybe he just doesn't go into the season fully healthy. Like, I'd rather have 100% Malik Nabers as 100% as he can be, right? As best as he can possibly with this injury, than somebody that's had to take off a little bit of that top end speeder because it's kind of bothering him in week 1. And that's to me the more concerning thing is like he's not as good as he possibly can be because of that toe injury.
I understand they have a plan in place. The plan, though, should still include practicing and playing in the preseason, is my take. Taking a Tuesday off is fine. If he can play on Saturday, he should. That's my take on it. Bubble wrapping him and just completely taking him out of practice. Because if they do that, Alex, you're telling me over the course of the next month, there's a little under a month between now and September, you're telling me that chemistry is just going to be right where it right where they picked it up. I don't think they're going to pick up right where they left off. They're going to have to work that back, in my opinion. I'm not giving him a full month off of football before the start of the regular season with the Giants back against the wall. Seats are hot as hell. These guys need to be ready. That's the thing. They got to be ready to go in week 1. So, and also I'll remind you this, Malik Nabers, the Giants won a game without him last year. So I'll be fine. They need to win weeks 1, 2. Those are divisional games. You cannot start the season 0-2. Be as ready as you possibly can be to hit the ground running in those games. I'd rather him, okay, his toe is a little aggravated. You're missing week 3. You're missing week 4. Those are the games you can miss. Maybe we could squeak out a win against those guys. 1 and 2 versus Washington and Dallas. He should be having as much preparation for those games in particular. I'd rather him miss games in the middle of the season than the beginning of the season for this specific Giants team.
For sure. I mean, listen, when it comes to Nabers and this concern here, like, I mean, you can't really afford to lose Nabers, to be fair. I mean, obviously you couldn't possibly win a game without him. The defense might be that good. But I do think, or at least the pass rush, but Nabers being 100% healthy, and I'm not suggesting that they bubble wrap him the whole rest of the summer. What I'm saying is from key dates that they don't necessarily need to be on there. Like when he doesn't need to be out there, like especially in practices like this with the Jets, like you're going up in it's semi-controlled, but things happen, fights happen, this happened, like, and we saw last year he got into a fight with the Lions. Like you just don't want to expose him to unnecessary risk. I think in environments like this, it's unnecessary risk. But when it's like, just a regular practice training camp, like, it's all controlled, I'm okay with that. But I don't want to expose him to a situation where it's a new environment, it's another team. He might be trying to prove himself. He might be trying to go overboard, and then he hurts himself because he's overcompensating. He's trying to prove something. He's trying to like ball out and have fun, and like gets a little bit reckless. Like that's like, I don't think that's necessary. I don't even think him playing in the preseason is necessary, because I don't think a drive is going to define Malik Nabers and Russell Wilson's chemistry. So that first half he plays against the Commanders in week 1, that's the equivalent of him, the amount of reps he's going to get, probably actually more reps than he'll get in that first half, in that first regular season game, than he would get the rest of the preseason. So just my personal opinion. I think we can agree to disagree. But
we're going to do that, and we are going to move on, because it has been a long time for this conversation. But the last thing I got to say, the first half of that regular season game, I don't want them off the same page. Use the half of snaps of a game that you would get in the preseason to get on the same page. So week 1 kickoff starts and you're on the same page. That's the whole point. Preseason reps matter. I agree with you. There are certain practices he doesn't need to participate in. He should at least get one preseason game in. And I'm not talking about a drive. I'm talking about a full half of football he should get under his belt before the regular season starts. And I feel that way about every Giants player. And I feel that way about every NFL player. No more bubble wrapping. It's stupid. Hurts the product of the game. But let's go ahead, flip over the Giants. They should have a better product on the field this season. Why? Their defensive line. Defensive line got after it today. Brian Burns was giving Armand Membu the work, okay? And Kayvon Thibodeau didn't do as much. But Abdul Carter, he also gave Olu Fashanu the work. Those guys, those two, were all over the place, all over the backfield, pressuring Justin Fields. Play in and play out today. Now, Alex, this is where I'll turn it to you. We already know Abdul Carter is sick. I'll say I am encouraged by how disruptive Brian Burns has been this offseason. All throughout the summer, he's been really impressive. But that third guy who I slipped in there, Kayvon Thibodeau, I heard that he got worked on 1 rep today, and that's only 1 rep. It doesn't define anything. But I just need to get this off of my chest here. And maybe I'm turning into the most controversial Giants podcaster in today's episode between my neighbor's take and the one that I'm about to drop. I need to see more from Kayvon Thibodeau in practice. I know that sounds a bit ridiculous, and I am definitely putting a lot of emphasis on the importance of practice all throughout this episode with the neighbor's take in this one. But Kayvon Thibodeau, I only hear from him in practice when he's not succeeding. I do not see the flashy reps that we get from Carter. I don't even get the sense that he's as consistently good as Burns. In fact, I hear that he is just as inconsistent as he was last season. Now, it's only practice. I'm not defining his season based on his training camp. But I just got to check the temperature of the room here, Alex. Do you have any concern about Kayvon Thibodeau? Because I got to admit, I have a slight concern here. Just because he hasn't been disruptive, former number 5 pick, at some point you got to start disrupting practices. But he hasn't been completely disruptive. Not saying he's been bad, but he definitely hasn't been great. So I just want to check the temperature of the room and see how you're feeling about Kayvon Thibodeau.
Maybe my take is, I think this is actually a pretty reasonable take at this point. I know that the Giants are going to have Kayvon, Abdul, and Brian Burns on the field at the same time. But in my opinion, let's assume like there's a solid amount of reps where there's only 2 of those guys on the field at the same time, and they have specific packages where they get Carter lined up inside. Kayvon Thibodeau's the number 3 pass rusher at this point. Like, it is Brian Burns and Abdul Carter. And I don't think that's even relatively high. I think that's an ice cold take. Like, Carter is already better than Kayvon Thibodeau, and he has never taken an NFL snap yet. That is, I think we can all probably agree that's true, just based on what we've seen already. I mean, Carter dominated today, and so did Brian Burns. Kayvon Thibodeau did not make much of an impact, and he hasn't. This camp, it hasn't been like a standout, whoa, Kayvon's doing this, Kayvon's doing that, amazing this, amazing that. He's basically been the player we've seen the last couple of years. You know what I mean? But with that being said, like, there's still untapped potential, and I am happy having a healthy, fresh-legged Kayvon Thibodeau in the second half of games, because Abdul Carter and Brian Burns were dominating the first half. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. You also have Chauncey Golston, Chauncey Golston, right? And so Chauncey Golston, you have a couple other depth pieces there, but like, Kayvon Thibodeau is the number 3 pass rusher. And I'm okay with him being on the field as long as Carter's also on the field, whether it be in an off-ball linebacker role, whether it be lined up as an interior guy next to Dexter Lawrence, where he's going to destroy any guard he sees. You know what I mean? But am I concerned about Kayvon Thibodeau? Not really. He's just a player we know him to be. Like, I don't expect players to improve in year 4, year 3 like that anymore, per se. I expect them to obviously develop and grow and take developmental steps forward. But when you're in year 4, we traditionally know, we kind of know what player you're going to be. I think, Banks got a tough draw because they changed his defensive coordinator right after the first year. And like, he showed lots of promise and they set him back, and I was confident his shot. Like, they did a lot of bad by Banks, but Kayvon's role has been relatively the same, and he just hasn't taken those gradual steps forward. And I kind of feel at this point like he's just who he is. I don't think that he's going to become so much better than he is right now. If he does, like, that's amazing. Like, but I'm not expecting it. I expect him to be what we've seen, and that's worse than Abdul Carter. And it's a very streaky player that can one day have 2 sacks and be a game wrecker and have a big fourth quarter moment, and other days you forget he's even on the field. Like, that's the kind of player Kayvon is. He's not a consistent player. He is volatile. He is good. He's bad. He's a ghost. He's okay. He's decent. He's everything. You know what I mean? He's everything, but not one thing. And I think, like, you need to have players like that can make a big play happen in a big moment. And then other times he's not there. But that's why you have Abdul Carter, who's going to do it in the first quarter. He's going to do it in the second quarter. He's going to do it in the third quarter. And he's going to do it in the fourth quarter. You and Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence are the same thing. So I don't really give a shit what Kayvon Thibodeau does anymore, because we have 3 other guys who are going to wreck a game in every single quarter now. So Kayvon Thibodeau, you can be a rotational guy. You can be a guy on the field with Abdul and Burns, but I am not upset about him because I don't expect anything anymore.
Listen, I get that. I understand that all the way. I think it's fair enough. If you're viewing him as the number 3 pass rusher, that's fine. I'm viewing him as a starter. I'm viewing him as one of the 3 starters, because I think the Giants' base defense is going to be a nickel 4-2-5. And in that 4-man defensive front, you're going to have 3 edge rushers on the field. You're just going to line up Abdul Carter on the interior and have him rush the A-gap. That's how I view this defense. I think that is the way that they maximize the talent on this defensive line. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence is going to be out there. He's the only interior defensive lineman that you need on your nickel formation, because you've got those 3 other pass rushers. And Carter, he could stop the run. Burns, he could stop the run. Thibodeau doesn't stop the run particularly well and doesn't get after the quarterback particularly well. He's just mid, and that's disappointing. He's a former top 5 pick, and he's a starter in this defense. I need more. That's all I'm trying to say. So I get it. I understand, expectations need to be tempered, and it's only practice. Don't overreact. But I got to say, I wasn't crazy about the way he performed last season. I was really hoping he would walk in this summer with a new mentality and a new fire underneath him and start lighting it up, especially when he's going up against a rookie offensive tackle like Armand Membu or a second-year tackle like Olu Fashanu. I want him to go into these joint practices and get to work. But we just haven't seen it today. It was a lighter practice, as you said, Alex. So maybe tomorrow he comes in, a little bit of a fire underneath him, and he gives those young guys the work. We shall see. But hey, we'll play it by ear with Kayvon Thibodeau. I got to also mention another guy that I really like who had a good practice, Alex. I think you know where I'm going with this. Pay this man. What are we waiting for? Give this guy his contract extension. Micah McFadden, one of the best draft picks of Joe Shane's tenure with the New York Giants, a 5th-round pick in 2022, who gets onto the field as a rotational starter, depth piece really as a rookie. But man, you know what? Pretty impressive. Year 2, takes on a starting role. Wow, that was pretty good. Year 3, even better. Every single season, this guy just gets better and better. And now he's going into year 4, the final season of his rookie contract, after putting up over 100 tackles each of the last 2 years. If this man puts up 130 tackles this year, his price tag is going to increase by $3 million per season, maybe even more. The Giants, what are you waiting for? He's a young guy who knows your system, is a locker room leader, good culture guy, has been ascending and improving every single season. That's the kind of homegrown talent that you give money to. So no more waiting. By the time you get to the 2026 offseason, he's going to be demanding a contract that you likely can no longer afford. Because I really think this is going to be a big year for Mike McFadden. He had a standout play against the Bills on Saturday. He blew up another run in the backfield today against the Jets during the joint practice on Breece Hall. He's just been a really good, consistent, quality player for the Giants. Now, I already know half of you are rushing to the comments to type on your keyboard about how he misses tackles. He misses them 5 yards in the backfield, and then somebody else makes the play behind the line of scrimmage. That's a good play. Yeah, I know he missed the first initial tackle. He still disrupted the play. That's the majority of his missed tackles. I really like Micah McFadden. He's one of my favorite players on this defense, and I think that he is the homegrown talent that the Giants need to prioritize extending sooner rather than later. Alex, I'll let you have a chance to give your take on the former 5th-round pick.
I mean, when it comes to Micah McFadden, he is, I guess I said it on the live stream, shot out of a cannon every time this guy has an opportunity to get after the football. He is there in the blink of an eye. You don't find players with those types of instincts all the time. And yeah, he misses tackles, but there's a reason for that. And you kind of suggested it. So, this is a player that if he stays healthy, he is going to be much more expensive to extend in a year than he is right now. So if I'm the Giants, I'm trying to get something done ASAP because he could be a star linebacker for a team. And I think with this defensive front, with this new and improved secondary, he's going to have more opportunities where the Giants just say, like, let him loose. Just let him loose. Like, let him off the chain. Let him go crazy. Let him shoot the gaps. Let him attack. And everybody else will clean up the mess. You know what I mean? In the past, we would let him shoot the gaps, let him be aggressive, but we had no one that could tackle. Like, Kayvon was missing tackles. Guys were just unable to wrap up. Our secondary was completely thin and weak and just really embarrassing for the most part. But now you got Holland, you got Nubin at strong safety, you got Adebo, you have Carter, Burns, Okereke. Like, you have a team that can rally. You have a team that can clean up those messes. Let McFadden wreak havoc in opposing offenses and let everybody else do the rest of the dirty work. So, like, he is just a game changer. Like, there are specific players on both sides of the ball that can influence a game. Micah McFadden is one of those players that can influence a game in the blink of an eye. Like, he's that quick to respond. He's that quick to react, and he forces fumbles. He gets after the football. He disrupts plays. He throws off timing. Those are types of players that you pay. Those are types of ways that you keep, because in big moments, he will make something happen. It's up to everybody else to make sure that they finish. So yeah, I would absolutely be looking to extend him, but in his best interest, he may not. I mean, I think he probably should take an extension now because you want that guaranteed money and you don't want to risk injury and play that game. But if he waits and he pulls off a healthy season, he's going to be $2 or $3 million more expensive per season, 100%.
Yeah, totally agreed. I'm all for rushing to sign him, but I understand, we'll see ultimately whether or not that happens. Giants don't really have a lot of money in next year's offseason, so they're going to have to be careful and plan ahead here. But yeah, I mean, if Micah McFadden hits unrestricted free agency next season, I do think he's going to be in line to get a pretty big contract. So, Alex, this episode's already pushing on to being one of the longer ones of the week. But hey, there was a lot to talk about today, and we got into a fight. But Deonte Banks, we got to talk about him before we do wrap up. So Deonte Banks struggled today. He was obviously going up against Garrett Wilson. To his credit, Garrett Wilson is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He just got handed a $130 million contract. He's a very good football player. However, Deonte Banks, I'd like to see you win at least a single rep against Garrett Wilson. From what I heard, he didn't win any. Garrett Wilson was giving him the work, consistently beating him and putting up crazy numbers during today's joint practice. Now, I understand, again, there's clearly a talent disparity there, but should there be? Deonte Banks is a former first-round pick. Deonte Banks had a lot of hype coming out of college, and Deonte Banks has not lived up to the hype. And Deonte Banks left practice early today, went to the locker room. I think he was just cramping, but we'll wait for more word on whether or not it's anything significant, although I don't think it is. I think we would have heard if it were. But Deonte Banks, Alex, job's on the line, man. Pressure is starting to build. There's rumors that the Giants could get active in the trade market to find a new competitor for the CB2 job. They had him play the entirety of the first preseason, of the first half of the first preseason game because Brian Dable said he needed the work. So what are your feelings about Deonte Banks not really putting in a great practice today against the Jets? Again, against good competition, but still would like to see him hold his own a little better, and obviously missing some of the practice due to some sort of fatigue or whatever. How are you feeling about Deonte Banks?
I mean, yeah, we need to see him stat good days. Look, Garrett Wilson kind of carves up every cornerback, so I'm not necessarily like, Banks needed to dominate. Garrett Wilson 1v1 is borderline impossible to stop. That's why he just got paid. So, like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, Banks sucks, like this is that, blah, blah, blah. I've watched some of the best corners in football get destroyed by Garrett Wilson. So, it's not necessarily like surprising that Banks lost those battles. I will say this, you hope that he gets 1 or 2 good reps in and, has some good moments, maybe not win the day, but at least have some positive momentum. And like, that doesn't seem to be the case. So yes, that is concerning to me. Absolutely need to see him stack better days. Absolutely need to see him take steps forward. At this point in time, though, Anthony, I mean, again, another guy that needs to be on the football field, Cordell Flott. If Flott gets in there and performs and, shows some optimism, shows some upside, he's going to win that CB2 job. He just has to get on the football field. So, right now it's definitely Banks' job to lose because there's nobody else really pressing him for the job. But if Flott returns and looks good, I wouldn't be surprised if they ran him out there as a CB2 to start the season.
I wouldn't be shocked either. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Deonte Banks struggled all last year, had those effort questions, everything. But Cordell Flott had some pretty good moments down the stretch. Like, he played some decent football last season, and I don't think enough people give him credit for that. Enough people maybe just didn't even realize it. So I like Cordell Flott. I think that he's a good player who's gotten better for the Giants every year. I think people forget that he was an outside cornerback when he was drafted. The Giants forced him into the slot, and that's why he struggled so badly. But when he plays on the outside, he's actually not so bad. So I do like that there's a competition coming on here, and I'm hoping that it does bring out the best of both of these guys. Hoping Deonte Banks is able to bounce back between now and the start of the season and win that CB2 job. But hearing through the tea leaves here, seeing that the Giants are maybe interested in adding some more talent at the position, honestly, I can't blame them if they want to. There are some decent cornerbacks available out there, including Asante Samuel Jr., former of the Chargers, who I actually do think is a pretty good fit for the Giants defense with his playing style. So we'll see if the Giants make a move. Of course, if they make any move, whether it's at receiver, corner, anything, you'll find out about it right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts down below in the comment section. If you listen to Apple or Spotify, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Go ahead and follow us on all of our social media channels at Fireside Giants. Without further ado, we'll catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and let's go New York Football Giants.